Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fueling Your Legacy, and we are excited to be talking today specifically about some of the benefits to writing a book. Why should you write a book for your future? And then what resources do you have to help create that legacy, help create that book so that you can pass it on to future generations, thus including the next generation in your legacy and helping them go forth and perpetuate that legacy onto the next generation. So one of the reasons writing a book is so beneficial is simply because of clarity. When we find clarity in our message, then it's able to actually be taken from one person and transferred to another person and to another person to another person. People who struggle with clarity in their message, what they actually also struggle with is the ability for that message to be perpetuated. If I'm sitting talking to somebody and they tell me a super complex idea, I'm going to be mind blown, which is awesome. But if I can't go and repeat that super complex idea to the next person, then that message isn't going to spread. And so as we get more clarity when we're writing things down and identifying what exactly we want to accomplish out of our legacy, then that helps us build that legacy. Now, what are some resources for that clarity? There's a great, if you go to briantracy.com, he has a great section there on how to write a book, why to write a book. He actually has an online program to help you write a book. Another person that really first exposed me to the idea of writing a book, her name is Jenn Foster. She's got multiple books that she's published. One of the books that has helped me that I've read of hers is The 7 Critical Mistakes when you're choosing a publisher for your book. And that's going to come down to how it's going to get out there, the materials that you're using, and how good of a book do you actually want. Do you want to create a crappy little pamphlet, or do you want to actually create a book that's kind of nice and going to portray the message of your legacy, right? If you treat your book super crappy and just use cheap materials, then the person who's reading that is going to be thinking, wow, this is a cheap legacy. If you have that bound in gold, it doesn't matter what's inside the book. People are going to be like, wow, he really cares about his legacy, right? And those are two very extremes. I'm not saying you have to choose one or the other, but just be aware how you bind your book, how it's presented on the page, how many words a page, how easy is it to read. All those things are going to play into whether that book actually is able to effectively carry your legacy into the future generations and the people around you, even in this generation. How is that going to help? And so that is one thing that I wanted to clarify there is how can we really make sure that we are being clear, and where do we get the information to do that? So Brian Tracy, great resource, and then Jenn Foster, you can look her up on Instagram or Facebook. She helps people publish a lot of things. I first met her at a conference, and up until this point, I had a goal of writing a book, but I just didn't know where to start. I was kind of struggling with what my message was. How would I do this? It's going to take forever, I thought. I was struggling with my mindset on it. Well, what she broke down for me was a good book. Really, each chapter, for the common reader today, they want shorter chapters. So a chapter should only have 5 to 10 pages at most in it anyways. And 5 pages of a 5x7 book is really like 3, maybe 3 Word document pages if it's just single space, right? So it's really not that much. We've all done that in college. We've all been able to do that. If you do that 6 or 7 times, well, now you've got a 150 page book that you could bind and present to somebody. Now, making sure your message is clear, that's another area that she helped me with. So if you have a topic that you want, and then you want to break down maybe 4 or 5 subsections of that topic, then in each of those subsections, you break that down another one time, and then you just write 2 or 3 paragraphs on each subsection, and then you have maybe 3 main sections, and then you have each chapter. And when you do that, that simplifies the process. It's way less overwhelming. What if you only needed to write a paragraph or 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs a day, right? I write in my journal every morning, and I generally write about an 8x11 sheet of writing in my journal every morning. It takes me about 30 minutes to write that with my hand. I can type way faster than I can write with my hand, and I can talk into my computer and let it type for me way faster than I can even type. And that was another thing that she mentioned, was too many people get this writer's block when they're trying to write it down. What's often more effective is just talk your book and then let it record through speech, through text. And then once you've accomplished that, then you go back and edit it and trim it up and make sure it's presentable. But you don't have to struggle through the actual typing of it and get caught up in all the little details and the grammatical errors and all those things. Don't worry about that initially. Just get the content down on pieces of paper. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and about 150 to 200 page audiobook is only 3 hours long. And that's from somebody reading it. And in my opinion, they read it slow, much slower than I talk, right? If I asked you, what are you absolutely passionate about, more passionate about anything, and you could talk for hours of it. Maybe it's your sports knowledge. You just know all this facts and different things about the history and the ratios and the percentages of stuff of a football team, whatever it is. Maybe it's something that you know about neuro-linguistic programming. Maybe it's about technology. Maybe it's about social media. Maybe it's about horses. Maybe it's about dogs. Maybe it's about kids. Maybe it's about how to fold laundry. It doesn't really matter. What's important is no matter where you're at, you could talk for 3 hours on a subject. If you were explaining simply what you do on a daily basis for your career, or as a mother, or as a child, or as a daughter or son, brother, sister, if you were explaining that to somebody who had no concept of what that is, right? Do you think you could spend 3 hours explaining what that is, explaining the relations, explaining the emotions, explaining what it takes to actually get to where you're at? I believe that you could do that, and you could spend 3 hours talking about it. If you can spend 3 hours talking about it, and from an educational perspective, help somebody get from point A to point B in that 3 hours conversation, then you can write a book. And that sent light bulbs, firecrackers off my head. I was like, oh my gosh, I can write a book. That gave me the confidence to believe in myself. I have enough knowledge. I know enough things about a specific topic that I can write a book. I love finance, and I'm absolutely passionate about it. But what I'm more passionate about than finance is the mental application of how to attract finances into your life, how to attract money into your life, how to bring your life into closer harmony, not just with the financial aspect, but the faith, the family, the fitness. And then what it takes from a mentality standpoint, a feeling standpoint, a heart place standpoint, what it takes to really build a legacy. And I've read a lot of books. I've had my own opinions. And so now I'm there able to share my opinions. And I was able to write a book. It doesn't have to be a long book, and I'm going to develop it over this next year into a 100 to 200 page book. But that gave me the confidence and the know-how that, like, wow, I can do this. So Jenn Foster, thank you for that. But I think it's important that each of us understand we can all write a book. And like I said on Monday, I've already written many books when it comes to my journals, and I'm sure you have too. What if you just went and collected the funniest stories or the most heartfelt stories or whatever out of your journal, reread it, and said, hey, I'm going to take this story, I'm going to maybe make it more presentable, but I'm going to take this story and publish it into a book. I'm going to publish this into a book and publish this into a book. You've probably already written a book. You just need an editor, right? So think in terms of how can you accomplish this rather than all the things that are holding you back. Think of, hey, what have I already done to accomplish this? So that's the first thing. So clarity, confidence is a huge thing of why to write a book. If you write a book and you're able to publish that, think of how much more confident you would be in your message, right? You've written this book, you've published it to the world. Now everybody knows what you're about in this life. Everybody knows what legacy you're trying to portray. Now, this is something that comes to my mind often. Well, what if my legacy changes? What if I write a book and I feel one way, and then in 5, 10 years from now, I feel a little bit different? Well, there's a few options. One, you can bring out a new edition of the book with the edits in it, or you can write a whole new book, or you could write a book that is a commentary of your old book, all the things you liked and didn't like about your past vision or legacy, right? So there's so many directions you can go with this. Even if things change, that's okay. What matters is, are you putting down what's really in your heart? Are you being authentic today? And as you do that, your confidence will rise. People will start to respect you more. And if you're in business and you write a book about your profession, whether it's roofing, roofing electronics, being a CEO, not being a CEO, being a grunt worker, laborer, working at Walmart as a store attendant, I promise you those people have plenty of stories to tell if they just made a book of like the secret life of a Walmart cashier and they started telling stories about the things that they've seen. That would be hilarious, and I would read that book just for the comic content. So there really, it doesn't matter what you're writing about, I guess is my point. But for me, why is it important to write a book about my legacy and what I want to achieve? And that is because I want to be able to leave it for my posterity. I don't want to pass away and my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren not know who I was or what I was about, the things that I stood for, the morals that I had, the values that I had, and how I went and helped many other people. So I don't want to lose that. And so it's important to me that I'm able to share that with other people. The other thing is, if you are in business, it's a great promotional item. If you are a speaker or anything like that, you can sell your book in the back of the speaking place, or even if you just are giving your book away for free, it helps people build confidence in you. They consider you an expert. If you have something published, somebody could have like 12 times more education than you. And if they have never published a book about what they do, and you go and you publish a simple book that's understandable for the common man and simplifies everything, then you're going to be considered more of an expert than the person who has lots of education in a lot of cases, because it's something tangible that somebody can take home, read, and they can intake and internalize your experience and your knowledge. Otherwise, if you are not going through that process and making sure that you're appearing as a credible resource and becoming an expert, then somebody can have a wealth of knowledge, but nobody's going to believe it because, or not nobody's going to believe it, but it's harder to sell that knowledge because it seems like something that only they can achieve and get and only they can understand. Whereas if you write a book and you simplify it, then you're giving that knowledge away to other people, and it helps them gain more confidence in your ability to help them, and thus you get more clients from it. Even if they've never read the book, then they are still going to want to have you working with them because they perceive you as an expert. So that's another reason to write a book if you're in the business space. I think from a legacy perspective, it's just important to have who you are and what you're about written down for the future generations. To finalize this, Brian Tracy, he is one of my favorite authors, hands down, and he has a ton of books. I think when I was researching him, he said he has somewhere close to 50 to 70 books that he's published, just published a ton of books. I've read a lot of them. No way have I read all of them. But what's cool about what he says is true happiness and fulfillment come when you feel that you are making valuable content to your world or for your world. Okay. So if you're adding valuable content to your world, then that's where true happiness and fulfillment comes from. And I believe that the times that I've felt the most happy, the most fulfilled, the most kind of lit up, my heart's on fire, whatever you want to call it, that's when I was adding value to somebody else's life, adding value to multiple people's lives, speaking on stage. Those things, they just get me going. I love that feeling. Not everybody does, and I get that. But for me, that's when I felt the most joy, when I was in the service of others and just giving of myself without any expectation of return. And that's exactly what a book is. If you write a book and you publish it, then you're just putting it out there. And oftentimes in a book, there's no like direct monetization. Sometimes you can get paid for selling your books. But from what I've seen from most authors, they aren't making money from selling their books. I wouldn't say it's a loss, but it's just maybe in the long run they make money, but initially they aren't writing it for the purpose of making money off their book. They're writing it for the purpose of gaining credibility. So just chew on that for a little bit. This Friday, Melanie Vota, she is an author, publisher, ghostwriter, and she helps people. She teaches courses that help people get their message out and actually share and write books for themselves and get their stories out. She specializes a lot in the self-help area or helping people write their memoirs. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely listen on Friday. And then as always, take a screenshot, tag me in it, tag Melanie, and make sure that we can get this message out there so that more people who have been kind of sitting on the fence, they've had this dream that's buried inside their heart that they're unwilling to share with people, so they can hear this and they can go share their dream and share their legacy, thus making it more meaningful to the people around them and including more people in it. So have a great day, and we'll catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.